Hello all, Rick here with another Cultural Index video, but first up a sort of disclaimer. We see a lot of the Vidiians in Star Trek Voyager, but in Series 5 of the show we learn that the species has been cured of the phage that ravaged their culture for generations, at least if the think tank's postulation can be believed. This ultimately would have had a dramatic shift on their society, so much of the following material may now be obsolete. But until, or if, the species is revisited, we won't know their current state of affairs. So let's get started. Biology. Genetically, the Vidiians are humanoid, quite similar to humans, but with a high hairline and faint brow crests, which suggests a slightly different skull shape. Internally, they were again similar to humans, and it seems that healthy Vidiians were still being born, but almost all would succumb to the phage at some point in their lives. In an attempt to limit this, gatherings were mitigated and contact kept to a minimum in an effort to control the spreading of the phage. Gee, I cannot relate. Their central government is known as the Vidiian Sodality, and in its prime it prioritised the endeavours of exploration, cultural development and encouraged artistic pursuits. From all records and second-hand information of the time, their homeworld, Vidia, was a highly developed society of great beauty. Not much else is specified on their planet. It was a Class M, as expected, but that's really about it. They, however, do have several far-flung colony worlds, such as Fina Prime, suggesting that at one time their reach was pretty significant. Then the phage hit them around 2,000 years ago and completely upended their way of life. The phage is a disease that effectively consumed the flesh of the afflicted, from skin to the internal organs. The illness was fatal as it attacked the genetic code of the host, then spreading and consuming the remains. The earliest symptoms included joint pain that grew in intensity and could put the inflicted into shock even in these early stages. The illness only affected the Vidiians, although there was always the lingering fear that it would inflict itself upon other species, as it was highly adaptive. The Sodality had to undergo rapid adaptation too to their new circumstance as the phage spread virulently among the entire populace and outposts. Their pursuit of exploration was halted, and the resources they once funneled towards cultural pursuits, such as artistic endeavours, were transposed to the medical and the survival of their species. Their medical sectors saw a rapid bloom in technology, and at first it was all focused on finding a cure. However, the disease adapted quickly, and every treatment proved a failure. Eventually, as thousands died every day, there was a shift in direction from seeking a cure to sustaining their population. This led to the development of enhanced organ gathering and the genetic adaptation of said organs to function across hosts. It began with gathering the organs of the deceased and salvaging the healthy ones, but as the generations passed, it became even harder to keep up with the demand. This led the Vidiians to begin to hunt for organs from other species and adapt them for Vidiian physiology. Soon, however, even this expanded salvaging from the dead was not enough, and they began to hunt the living. Using their incredibly advanced medical tech, they would locate unwary victims, usually secluded ships or parties from any species, and hit them with a raid-like strike, claiming both living victims and the organs of peoples they encountered before retreating into hiding. The living victims were often kept for harvesting at a later date. After all, what better way to keep organs fresh? While the harvested organs were generally used immediately, as there was always a Vidiian in need. This grisly endeavour had numerous repercussions for their culture, and while this aggressive harvesting might not have been officially backed by the Sodality, it was condoned by a deliberate lack of policing. That, and many Vidiians were now so nomadic that regular contact between them was sparse. Commonly, Vidiians were paired up to watch over one another, with one, the Hanata, responsible for gathering resources and organs to keep them healthy, while the other pursued their work. Despite this, however, they did maintain trade and connections to other species despite their reputation as organ harvesters. Legitimate trade for medical supplies would still have been an avenue explored by them, and they had to either construct their own tech, pay someone to do it for them, or buy resources. Although even the Vidiians found the actions of the Malon to be somewhat reprehensible, as they actually imposed trade sanctions against them. The technology in play after 2,000 years of development was beyond Federation ability in some areas, but comparable in others. Considering that their culture had been consumed with survival, experimentation, and survival for 2 millennia, one can assume most of their technological developments were attained before the phage afflicted them. They had highly developed scanning devices for the express purpose of diagnosis, as well as extracting an entire genetic profile in seconds. They were also adept at transporter technology, using it to surgically remove selected organs from a target, and these technologies were frequently combined into their portable scanners. They have even demonstrated the ability to extract an entire genetic profile and duplicate it while also carrying over the subject's memories and personality, as seen with the splitting of B'Elanna Torres into 2 distinct halves, one completely human and one Klingon. Their ships were designed into easily isolatable sections, and the bridge only had 2 stations. Despite this, a Vidiian Saviour class vessel could house up to 300 crew members. Their ships were one of the few belonging to advanced species that still utilised grappler technology over tractor beams for the far more invasive and damaging effect they could have by physically piercing a vessel's hull. In terms of armaments, the vessel often carried quantities of hyperthermic charges and were capable of warp 9.6, making them one of the more developed cultures of the deep Delta Quadrant. Additionally, as adept as they were in scanners, they were also decent in evading them, and had numerous outposts spread throughout the far Delta Quadrant where their raiding parties operated. Literally operated. Almost every Vidiian has some degree of medical knowledge because of their condition, and a large number of them double up this expertise with whatever else needs doing. Private medical research and experimentation seems to be encouraged, with those engaged in such given a wide degree of leeway to pursue their work, all in the hopes that someone somewhere will devise a new countermeasure or even a cure for the phage. There have been several promising leads in the past, including the discovery that Klingon DNA was especially resistant to the phage, but it was not until 2376 that an organisation known as the Think Tank claimed to have generated and sold them an actual cure, and that it had been implemented by 2380. Unfortunately, rumour has it that although the phage was cured, removing the blight that had plagued their society, the victimization that they had visited upon others came back to bite them. We saw the same thing happen with the Terran Empire in the Mirror Universe. After Spock enacted reformations, their enemies attacked the weakened Empire. In beta canon, the Sodality came under attack from various quarters from species that they had wronged in their crusade of survival, their former victims seeking revenge. Vidiian script resembled angular brackets of varying styles and vertical lines punctuated by dots. These were further clustered into words, and often segments of text were mirrored. This means that the symbol for the Vidiian Sodality was in all likelihood actually a stylized word and not simply an emblem or crest. Their naming conventions included a first and second name, but the second name was the one used to address them. There really is not much more content on the Vidiians than was portrayed in the shows. With the mention of the cure, the grim phage-afflicted version of their society is now theoretically in the past, and a new look at their culture could be taken, but that is for some future Trek show. It's kind of sad to see them become the subject of revenge attacks, but I can totally see why it would happen. Above all, they were desperate, and surviving by the only means left to them. Given their location in the Delta Quadrant too, many of their neighbours would have been technologically inferior, especially in the medical sense, so help from outside was unlikely. I think it would be nice to revisit them at some point to see where they're at now, and I hope to see that in at least a side story, or even a future book. So thanks for watching this video on the Vidiians, and as usual I have two options for you to vote on for the next index. I was thinking we could stick with the Star Trek universe, with them either being the Benzites or the Suliban. Leave your vote over on the community tab, and until the next video, I've been Rick, and I hope to see you swing by again for another one. Thanks again, and goodbye.